Here we go. Hi,
Oh,
family.
good morning.
We've missed you. Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Yes, we have. I've needed you desperately, and here you are. Thank you. We're on lesson 352. Yes.
Two, are we? Three. Yeah, that's it,
All
sis.
right.
Got it. You got the right lesson.
Yeah. So
352.
how about I read it since Sis is going to share something that she was given by
Yeah.
Jesus to share with us after the lesson from the text. That works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on for a sec, sis. Yeah.
Sure.
Um, lesson 352.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. 352. Good. Yeah, I'm just writing it down.
We are recording.
We are. I'm sorry. A little bit slow this morning.
I can do these little hand puppets for our family to keep them hi guys. All right. We're going 352. And a beautiful sister in our family said, I really like it when you pause before we read the lesson, so that's what we'll do. Let's just take a moment.
Thank you.
There we go. Judgment and love are opposites. From one come all the sorrows of the world, but from the other comes the peace of God Himself. Forgiveness looks on sinlessness alone and judges not. Through this, I come to you. Judgment will bind my eyes and make me blind. Yet love, reflected in forgiveness here, reminds me you have given me a way to find your peace again. I am redeemed when I elect to follow in this way. You have not left me comfortless. I have within me both the memory of you and one who leads me to it. Father, I would hear your voice and find your peace today, for I would love my own identity and find in him the memory of you. Judgment and love are opposites. From one come all the sorrows of the world, but from the other comes the peace of God Himself.
Thank you for reading that, sis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was guided this morning when I joined with Jesus to open up a section, and I swear I haven't read this before.
Oh,
in
I doubt that.
31 years, and I have read it. Parts of it came through, but other parts of it I was absolutely astounded by. And I would like to share, well, I thought I had one paragraph that I'd like to share. And then I was told very lovingly and yet sternly, no, read the entire section. And if you will just have patience, please, with me, sis.
Sure. Yes.
And our beautiful family, and join with me in this so we can take this in very, very deeply. Okay. Because, judgment and love are opposites, right? That's what it says in this lesson. So that means that that any judgments we make are opposite of God. And if our true identity is the Christ, we're judging against our identity.
That's right.
Like, we cannot afford to do that because it ends in death, physical death, but a lot of pain before we reach physical death. So let me read this section. It is from, and I'll tell you in a second, it's from chapter 13, and it's section 9, and it's called the cloud of guilt. And at the end of this, we're going to know why judgment, we can't afford to use the ego's judgment anymore. Guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father, for guilt is the attack upon his Son. You know, when he talks about the Father, he's talking about love. He's talking about true union. Yeah? Guilt is the only thing that hides that. The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past, as is the ego's law. Fidelity to this law lets no light in, for it demands fidelity to darkness and forbids awakening. The ego's laws are strict, and breaches are severely punished. Therefore, give no obedience to its laws, for they are laws of punishment. And those who follow them, believe that they are guilty, and so they must condemn. Between the future and the past, the laws of God must intervene if you would free yourself. Atonement stands between them, like a lamp shining so brightly that the chain of darkness in which you bound yourself will disappear. Release from guilt. And you got it, sis.
Yeah.
Release from guilt is the whole ego's undoing. All right? Or he says, is the ego's whole undoing.
Right.
That smacked me in the head this morning. Release from guilt is the ego's whole undoing. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. And by obeying the ego's harsh commandments, you bring its condemnation on yourself, and you will not escape the punishment it offers those who obey it. The ego rewards fidelity to it with pain, for faith in it is pain. And faith can be rewarded only in terms of the belief in which the faith was placed. Faith makes the power of belief. That's a huge statement. Faith makes the power of belief. And where it is invested determines its reward. For faith is always given what is treasured, and what is treasured is returned to you.
Do we
The
want to
world,
stop there?
you got it?
Yeah. Do we want to stop just for a second, or?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm reading this along with the family for those of you who opened up the course and if you're just listening. But to recap on this, to just try and make it real practical, right? So when we choose judgment, we are choosing to implement an I know mind, which is the insistence that we can know something, see something, judge something apart from the will of God. So it's our declaration, my will be done, not the will of God. So it's assigning, judgment assigns truth to illusions. And that's the ego's arrogance of saying my will is also true. And it's an opposition to God. And so he's saying to those, this, as we utilize judgment, the result in the mind is always guilt, because our right mind, the mind that we share, the Holy Spirit, knows that there is only one will and there's only one truth and nothing else is true. So right there in our mind is the truth, which is that light, the lamp when we accept the atonement, which says only the truth is true,
Mm-hmm.
or we're electing judgment through the ego's thought system, which results in guilt. He's saying here that the release of guilt from the mind, the darkness from the mind, is our release, our salvation. It's the ego's entire undoing. If guilt were not present in the mind, we could not know ourselves or sense ourselves as separate from God. So the ego's lifeline truly rests in its seeming ability to judge what is not there as being real.
Beautifully said.
Okay. So just bringing us to this point in what he's saying, and we give faith to what we're always choosing. There's no third ground. We're always idolizing and worshiping either God or the ego. And what we worship is where we have placed our faith. Do you have faith in yourself, little s? Or are you placing faith where the only place that it can safely be laid, which is in your holiness as the Son of God who is one with God? And where you place your faith will bring definite results. Judgment brings pain. Because when you think you're judging another, you are literally judging yourself. You can't off it. All judgment is self-judgment. And you can feel very justified in your judgments of what you're seeing out there. But we know that that's the setup. That is the ego wanting us to see something out there and through judgment making it real. The ego knows full well that it's all in your mind, and the judgment that you feed is self-condemnation to the point that this road leads inevitably to death. It does not want you to recognize the cost of judgment. And for one who's been stewing in it for 3 days, it is toxic and painful, and it is pure insanity. And the only one that's being punished by it is yourself. And there's always this option, and he pointed to it briefly, the atonement intercepts this mind that thinks it knows from the past and is now judging things based on its past education. It's judging what's occurring before it based on the past. And he says the severing, the breaking of this is the lamp of the light that dispels the darkness in the mind, because it doesn't know anything, with accepting the atonement. That's the I don't know anything. I don't have a mind apart from God. The one that thinks it does is looking upon illusions, on chaos, looking in the dark and trying to make sense of it and give it its own definitions and believe in it. And that's what we're all doing until we recognize the cost of trying to make a parallel reality to what is by asserting a will apart from God.
Beautifully explained. Thank you. And it takes great learning,
yeah,
to get this at the absolute
mm-hmm.
level. All right, because it's not until we've come to breaking point,
right,
with this temptation to judge.
So
really
you're saying
at the end, right? At
so
that,
our suffering causes us the contrast learning enough to the point, right?
I'm speaking from my own experience.
Yes, yeah.
And I had to bring this up last night in my mind as I remember going through, you know, a terrifying time of great judgment. And this is quite a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was probably the peak of my individual judgment experience. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the judgment got so bad for me that I bought into it. And I bought into it not for 3 days, but I bought into it for 2 weeks. Can you imagine?
I'm sorry, sis.
All right. Yeah. So the judgment escalated to such a point I wanted to take my life.
Yeah.
was saying that that's where it was taking me. It was taking me to suicide. And I saw at that point, thank God, by accepting atonement and breaking the spell, because it is a spell.
It's a total spell.
Hypnotism, right?
Major mesmerism.
It's major. And I at that point then, like I made that positive separation at that point and realized, wait a minute, this judgment's trying to kill me. This is literal.
Yes.
2 weeks of shit
yes.
had led me to that point. And that was, I do believe that was a turning point for me. That was it. That was, I couldn't keep judging. I saw the contrast between the ego and the holy self I am, or the Christ I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to help all of you, there's going to come a time where the mind will latch on to something that it is certain that it sees and feels and knows. And I liken it to this pit bull on a meaty bone. It just, you try and pull that bone away and it latches on harder. And you try and grab it and pull it away and that dog is starting to snarl at you, right? And even though in moments of clarity, I could come up for a moment to the mountaintop and get a gulp of fresh air, and then it felt like somebody was literally pulling my legs down underwater again. And I'm back in the wash of this insanity of this mind that's just like the judgment and then the condemnation for the judgment, and then trying to extricate myself from the judgment, from the same mind that's seeing the judgment and wants to make it real. And it was just like, oh my God, and after days of that, and feeling the effect of it on the body, I think it was just sitting up in bed really and recognizing that there's something in me still that's greater than the pull of this, and standing up for my rights in the name of Jesus Christ and saying, I'm not going to be ragdolled by an ego mind. And something in that conviction of the light, there is a light in me that's bigger than this. And I'm drawing on its power. It doesn't come from Coreen, it comes from God. And it's in me. And that's bigger. It's the greatest power there is. And it felt like, I was telling Sis, it felt like a fever had popped. And I slowly kind of came back into my right mind. And by this morning, I was in joy. But it was, talk about contrast. yeah, Thinking suicide is your way out of this insanity?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It's the greatest temptation. And if we deny the suicide, I'm glad I didn't.
I'm so glad you
didn't. What was shown to me later was that it'll come out sideways, and be incredible physical pain, or a so-called incurable disease.
Yes.
And we go, well, where did this come from?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and when we recognize the rage and the anger, and I think he's going to talk about, he talks about it in section 9 in chapter 13, but the rage and the anger that's underneath the judging mind, that is what creates disease and sickness and death. Yeah. That's what the body simply just caves under that level of rage until we grab to the light, until we let the mind that's governing the body be switched. Yeah. You're right.
So incredibly helpful. I wish I'd had this recording back then when I was staring death in the face. It would have helped me greatly.
Well, maybe we coming together are helping somebody, because I do believe everybody's going to come to this. Because let's face it, the ego loves its judgment. It's delicious in its lips. It smacks its lips and says, oh, look at me. Look how enthroned I am. I am a creator independent from God. I have made this entire world. I know what it is. I can decide how it will go. I'm in total control. I am God. And really, to get rid of judgment is to pull the plug on the ego thought system. Right. Because guilt is removed when we are no longer judging. And so I'm recognizing my path now is just the practice of catching every judgment on the fly and handing it over and saying, I know nothing. I know nothing. And we've said that before, but when you have an experience like that, I think it ramps up your vigilance to know I can't afford to judge. No, I can't even judge. What we are cannot judge.
Thank you, sis. You just reminded me. Look what I found. Sorry, it's a
That
bit
looks familiar.
it's a little bit tatty, right?
Tatty?
Tatty. Do you know what tatty means?
Tattered.
Yeah.
Okay. Lift it up a little bit, sis.
Do
Raise
you
it up
have
a little
one?
bit.
Maybe I can't see what I'm
Do I
doing.
have one? Just right here. All right, go
you're better
ahead.
at it. Thank you.
Mine's
All
pretty
right.
tattered.
Oh gosh, yours is worse than mine.
I know.
Oh,
I started
okay.
doodling on it. Whoopsie.
Naughty, naughty.
It's been...
Okay, so can you close the gap for a second? I just want to have a look. Does it still work?
Well, you'll have to join with me to do that.
Okay,
Yes.
so the only way that we could be in judgment is if we are defending something in the gap.
Right.
Right?
So when we're, yeah. And a judgment is, I am this. There's the first judgment.
That's the first judgment. That's it. So private minds with separate agendas that can clash.
Right.
And the same thing is that in order to have conflict with another person, the other person also has to want to defend what's in the gap.
Right. Two minds that are split, that want to have the experience of separation, play out here. And this is the idea of conflict. And conflict is judging. It just looks at nothing. Remember, the gap doesn't exist. It's empty, it's an imagined space we've carved out in the omnipresence of God, where illusions seem to be taking place, and we're all nodding in agreement that what isn't true is. And we've all consented to our definitions, and we're playing. The mind is asleep and playing that this is actually going on, and it's only happening in the dream. But while we judge it, while we judge illusions, this is what keeps this running. Our judgment is the glue that protects us from realizing none of this is true. And this is not who I am. That's not me. These are not my thoughts. This is not the real world. And then two people miraculously say, well, let's bust this together, right? So let's join. And when we join in the holy instant, we have the experience of union. Well, two split minds can't experience union. They want bodies, they want separation. But when you have your brother, your holy relationship partner, you get to experience this. And it gives you enough contrast. For a while, you seem like this, right? Until finally there's some judgment. It's going, man, this is really real. This is really real. And you finally just forgive that. And you're back here at the peace of God. I remember just going, I just want the peace of God. My mind is in hell. I'm totally insane. And I want the peace of God more than I want this.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And thank you, sis. Shall I keep reading this?
Yeah, yeah.
Only 7 more paragraphs to read.
That's fine. I just felt like listening to the course sometimes people, if you're just listening to it, it's good to bring it just forward and consolidate it.
Yeah, thank you. The world can give you only what you gave it. This stood out for me when I read it.
Yeah.
The world, that means our brothers as well and sisters can only give you only what you gave it, right? For being nothing but your own projection. It has no meaning apart from what you found in it and placed your faith in. That's a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Good or bad, you've placed your faith in it, and you want it. It's there because you wanted it there, and you wanted it there because you wanted to experience separation.
Yes. Be faithful unto darkness, and you will not see, because your faith will be rewarded as you gave it. You will accept your treasure. And if you place your faith in the past, the future will be like it. Whatever you hold dear, you think is yours. The power of your valuing will make it so.
And I just want to interject.
I meet you too, because my past was hell. My childhood was hell. I think many of us, not most, but many of us had a hellish childhood.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Could you value? Could you judge without a past? Think about
No.
that. If today you're walking around and you have no past, could you know what anything is for?
No.
Could you know what anybody is about, what anything means, right? Now you recognize the past gives context to everything you're experiencing, and from that, you judge. So if we want to withdraw our judgment, we forgive the past.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to go back starting today and start hitting those first 25 lessons again, because I really want to get no judgment. And why are those the first lessons out of the book, right? Nothing that I see means anything. I have given it all the meaning that it has for me, right? Wow. And on and on. So this is crucial.
Yeah, you're right, sis. That the first 50 lessons.
Is it 50? Okay, I got some
Oh,
more.
well, for me. No, but yeah, it's huge. But even the first 25 lessons is, you know, enough to go back on. Yeah. So he says here, I'll just go on to paragraph 4. Atonement brings a re-evaluation of everything you cherish, for it is the means by which the Holy Spirit can separate the false and the true, which you have accepted into your mind without distinction. This is it, you know, accepting both unreality and reality, or accepting two powers.
Right.
When we judge and we get caught up in that judgment, we're accepting two powers. We're accepting that there is God and there is the ego, and they're both equally true and equally powerful.
And that's the split. That's the insanity. Because you can't forget the truth. It's always in your mind. It's always there. So when you introduce, and this is what I'm getting, we know full well our innocence. We know who we are, and we know how we are. And so this introduction to the mind of innocence, of guilt, was so toxic, so devastating, that it absolutely brought the mind into a state of chaos, night, and insanity. Guilt and innocence being in the same place. And while we believe any of our illusions, we believe in guilt.
Yeah.
So when that guilt is gone, the memory of our innocence doesn't come to us. It arises within us because it's always right here. It's what we're trying to hide from. We're trying to forget. We're trying to cover over with our judgments. Give up the judgments. The guilt goes. Innocence is recalled, and game over. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have to make that distinction now. Now that we know that the mind is split and we're entertaining two opposite thought systems, now it's about using our discernment and asking our right mind, right? What is the truth here? Forgiving what isn't, accepting what is, and valuing what is. Recognizing what isn't has never brought you anything of any value, any satisfaction, any lasting pleasure. Contrast learning, right?
Yeah, and it's so friggin' painful. But
yeah,
we won't until we do it, right?
I'm glad it's painful.
Yeah, I am now. Yeah, I wasn't before.
Well, we wouldn't. We would just do this in perpetuity, forever, life after life after life after life. And just, not that it was ever life, but, you know, incarnation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad for the pinch or the socket or the punch. It's like,
electric shock.
Yeah.
Therapy. Yeah. Therefore, you cannot value one without the other, right? So the false and the true. Yeah. Therefore, you cannot value one without the other, and guilt has become as true for you as innocence. That's just what we were talking about, right?
Yes.
You do not believe the Son of God is guiltless because you see the past and see him not. When you condemn a brother, you are saying, I, who was guilty, choose to remain so.
Yes.
I mean, that's the ultimate in insanity.
It is. Yes.
Okay? You have denied his freedom, and by so doing, you have denied the witness unto your freedom, right? You could as easily have freed him from the past and lifted from his mind the cloud of guilt that binds him to it, and in his freedom would have been your own. Lay not his guilt upon him, for his guilt lies in his secret thought that he has done this unto you. Would you then teach him he is right in his delusion? The idea that the guiltless Son of God can attack himself and make himself guilty is insane. In any form, in any one, believe this not. For sin and condemnation are the same. And the belief in one is faith in the other, calling for punishment instead of love. Nothing can justify insanity, and to call for punishment upon yourself must be insane. I can see this now.
Yes.
Right? So see no one then as guilty, and you will affirm the truth of guiltlessness unto yourself. In every condemnation that you offer the Son of God lies the conviction of your own guilt.
Yes.
If you would have the Holy Spirit make you free of it, accept his offer of atonement for all your brothers, not just some of them.
Right. All
right. For so you learn that it is true for you. Right. Remember always that it's impossible to condemn the Son of God in part. I love this.
Yes.
I didn't understand this before, but by God, I got it now.
So we cannot accept the atonement at one-ment. You can't say, I accept the atonement for myself, but not for my brother, because there is just one of us here. So you cannot piecemeal or compartmentalize or just accept the atonement for the ones that you profess to love and leave those that you're certain that you hate on the outside. The hatred that you think is in your brother is your own sense of guilt being projected out. So when you accept it, you cannot accept it until you will accept it without exception.
Right. And that's
accept and accept. Yes.
That's it, sis, because all hatred is self-hatred.
It is.
As Jesus says, is that all attack is always self-attack. The same thing.
Yes.
Right? But by God, the ego resists that to the nth degree.
Mightily.
So, those whom you see as guilty become the witnesses to guilt in you, and you will see it there, for it is there until it is undone, forgiven. Guilt is always in your mind, which has condemned itself. Reject it not, for while you do, it cannot be undone. With everyone whom you release from guilt, great is the joy in heaven. They party in heaven, right? Where the witnesses to your fatherhood rejoice. Now, guilt makes you blind, for while you see one spot of guilt within you, you will not see the light. That is so scary. Well, right? Yeah. Which is true. While you see one spot of guilt within you, you will not see the light. And by projecting it, the world seems dark and shrouded in your guilt. You throw a dark veil over it and cannot see it because you cannot look within. You're afraid of what you would see there within, but it is not there. The thing you fear is gone. If you would look within, you would see only the atonement, shining in quiet and in peace upon the altar to your Father. There's the peace of God.
I know I have not read that before.
Oh, right. Okay. That's why we're reading it now together. All right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Do not be afraid to look within. I'm going to say it again. Do not be afraid to look within. The ego tells you all is black with guilt within you and bids you not to look. You'll be struck dead, right? Instead, it bids you look upon your brothers and see the guilt in them.
So much easier, not.
Not. Yet this you cannot do without remaining blind, totally blind.
Yes.
For those who see their brothers in the dark and guilty in the dark in which they shroud them are too afraid to look upon the light within. That's what the real terror is.
Yes.
Within you is not what you believe is there and what you put your faith in. Within you is the holy sign of perfect faith your Father has in you. And that is all that's there. Okay?
Yeah.
He does not value you as you do. He knows himself and knows the truth in you, and only the truth in you.
That's it.
He knows there is no difference, for he knows not of differences. Can you see guilt where God knows there is perfect innocence? This is that incorruptible innocence that knows no sin, and therefore no fear, no attack, no projection. You cannot deny his knowledge, you can deny his knowledge, but you cannot change it, his knowledge. In other words, you cannot change your identity. It's
yes. So we're really terrified to look within and see the proof that we are innocent. Because if we are innocent, then this story of separation and therefore guilt is gone. So this is the ego's tenacity on its judgment. When you think you've lost your mind and the judgment is raging, what the real terror is has nothing to do with the object of your judgment. It is the mind's terror, knowing that should you actually look and discover no guilt within, your incorruptible innocence arises in your awareness, and any belief in separation vanishes. There's the light. No more dark. That's the terror.
That's its terror, sis, because the me, mythical me, the identity that really does believe and want a private mind with separate agendas that can clash with my brothers and sisters and God, is gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. Okay. Look then upon the light he placed within you and learn that what you feared was there has been replaced with love. Always. It's the love was always there. It never changed.
Yes.
Changed. It's changeless, completely changeless. And so that was that section in chapter 13, section 9. All right. And just to cap on this, and I will just be quiet after that, maybe. I got to remember this. Projection makes perception. This is in accord with perception's fundamental law. You see what you believe is there, and I'm speaking about my childhood right now.
Yes.
Because I was severely abused, as I've spoken before, as a child, like many of us have been. Yeah, I can't place. I cannot continue, and I won't, and I haven't, and I'm not. I can't continue to place meaning in that abuse. In other words, everything else that's happened since that past abuse has happened because of that past abuse. I can't place cause in an effect. I came in and I asked for my parents. I asked to be severely sexually assaulted at the age of 8.5 years old in this lifetime. I carried that wound in. No guilt, but I carried that wound in. I cannot go back to that wound here in this lifetime and give it cause for all the other shit that occurred to me in this.
And you do that when you judge the seeming occurrence.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'm going to read this, all right? Projection makes perception. This is in accord with perception's fundamental law. You see what you believe is there, and you believe it there because you want it there, underlined, right? Perception has no other law than this, right? We wanted that. I wanted it there. This sounds very cold and callous, but I wanted it there to anchor the idea that I was a mythical me with a private mind, with separate agendas apart from my brothers and sisters and my parents and the one who seemingly abused me when I was 8 years old, right. You know, and to keep the whole frigging thing going. I mean, I wanted it there. I wanted it there, and I needed to keep the judgment there, and I needed to go and have therapy and God knows what else. And now I'm in a place where that is gone. That part's gone. I can't use that anymore because I've taken full accountability without guilt that I obviously brought the wound in, and I brought that wound in for a reason. All right. And so it's over. And I want to say this too, is it in any union with a brother in which you seek to lay your guilt upon him or share it with him or perceive his own, you will feel guilty. Oh my God, that's so true. Nor will you find satisfaction and peace with him because your union with him is not real. There's all the special relationships we've ever had. The union with them is not real. You will see guilt in that relationship. Why, I ask? And Jesus says here, because you put it there. Right? Right. That is the only way I could see guilt in my relationship with anyone, with you, with anyone, sis, is if I put it there. Oh my God, that changes everything. And then Jesus says this, he says, and this is from chapter 13, section 3, he says, your fear of attack is nothing compared to your fear of love. That's it. Your fear of union. Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with. All the judgments we make all boils down to our terror of love, our terror of true union with our brothers and sisters. That's it.
Because should we recall it, mythical me would be seen clearly as an illusion.
Yeah.
That's why, people still have a hard time. How, why, the mind, the ego as a defense goes, well, why would you fear love? That makes no sense. Yes, it makes perfect sense. If you looked within, saw the proof, felt the proof that separation has not occurred and you are innocent, guilt would be left. Only the introduction of guilt into the mind seemed to split it. When you see your innocence, guilt is no longer in the mind. Your mind is now whole. It's no longer split. The whole mind knows with God. Yeah. Your mind is returned from perception to knowledge. You are knowing with God, and there is no fear in God. No fear in love. Love is enthroned. Love is restored. Fear and guilt are nowhere to be found when we know our innocence. And the precursor to all of this is the absence of judgment. These so-called horrific things that seem to have occurred in the past only seem to remain in our mind, feeding us guilt because we've got judgment around it.
Yeah.
I was unfairly treated. That, pervert or pedophile or whatever, the perpetrator. I'm the victim. These are all judgments we've overlaid on what? On illusions. To what? To make them real so that we can perpetuate guilt and keep the mind split. Yeah, it's all about forgiving our judgments. That's this lesson. Judgment and love are opposites. From judgment comes all the sorrows of the world, but from love comes the peace of God himself. Choose wisely. Thank you. We hope you have taken the fruit from this, the core teaching. I think feels like you have.
I know I have.
Use our suffering, guys. Don't do it. Just, If it was for anything, it's for all of us. You don't have to go through this ultimately. Just notice where you're judging and forgive it. Drop into the heart. Don't trust your senses. Trust your heart. Trust your heart's knowing. It always knows. The head's going to get it wrong. The head, I've seen this so clearly, that the head is just a servant to the heart. It will do things for you, help you do things, but let it be the servant of the heart. The heart's bidding, the heart's knowing. See through the heart, the eye of the heart. There's a blog a couple days back, down in the list of resources. Seeing through the eye of the heart. Please, please, please read it. Or at least join me when I'm unpacking it in this offering coming up on Tuesday nights. Anchoring the deeper teachings of A Course in Miracles. I will read this blog with you and we will really unpack this. It's everything.
Okay. Beautiful, sis. I'm just going to ask Wanga to place it in a link directly below this video as well. Yeah?
Awesome.
There. Is that good?
Yeah. Okay, you guys, that's 3:52. I think we nailed it. Oh, yeah. Thanks, sis. Thanks, family.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Love you.
Yeah, we do. What she said.